Hello, anybody watching us? So tonight we are discussing the read for both Vaginal Fantasy in August and for Sword and Laser in August, which is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. And before we start out, does anybody have any drinks that they would like to share?
I'm completely drinkless.
Yeah, I am too. I didn't even bring my bottle of water.
I'm going to be the only one, aren't I? Elizabeth, help me here.
H2O, sorry.
Right, so I'm sitting here all by myself drinking alcohol. I have I wasn't missing out on it for tonight. I'm not doing very many more of these Vaginal Fantasy ones, so anyway. So guys, we've got a couple of new people, but I thought we'd start off how we usually do, which is just general impressions, and so that nobody feels like they're on the spot first, I'm starting with you.
I loved it. I was a little bit worried because so many people were talking about how awesome it was, and I was like, oh, I hope it's not overhyped, but no, I loved it. I was also worried because I ordered from Booktopia on the 1st of August, and I only got it on Monday, and so I was panicking that I wouldn't get it finished in time. And then I started reading it, and it took me like a day and a half to read. So I may not have got many other jobs done during that time, but yeah,
was it your day
really
off?
good. Yeah, it was because it was good that it arrived on Monday because I don't work Mondays and Tuesdays. So otherwise, if it had been a bit later, I probably wouldn't have gotten it finished in time. But yeah, I didn't really put it down pretty much from when I picked it up. So really good. Loved the characters. I didn't love the dragon guy to start with, but I think I liked no, I've forgotten her name. Agnieszka?
Nobody seems to have consensus on pronunciation on this one.
I really liked her, and I really liked her relationship with her best friend, and that was the major relationship in the book, but we'll get into that a bit more later. In general, I really, really liked it.
Cool. Erin?
Yeah, it took me a while to get into it. I think I don't quite know what I was expecting, but I kept waiting for things to happen that didn't. But yeah, by about a third of the way through, I found myself drawn to it. I really liked the whole creatures of the wood kind of element, and the fact that she wasn't the usual kind of heroine that was all like, oh, woe be me. She was all about, just trying to sort herself out and do what she can. She didn't rely on her relationship with the dragon as like a story point. So yeah, it was all right. I actually preferred the other book, the
old pick?
Mercedes Thompson. Yeah, is it Moonfall, Mercedes Briggs one? But that's because I have a thing for werewolves. So, but yeah, no, I liked it. It was good.
Awesome. Elizabeth?
I really enjoyed it until about halfway. I was really into it, like up way past my bedtime reading, and then it got to probably the halfway point. Stuff began to happen, and I thought, no. I finished it, but it was not the book that it started out for me. Yeah, which I guess we will also discuss later. But yeah, I really liked Agnieszka. All the YA that I read is girls kicking ass and taking names, and she certainly fits that category. She was great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I wanted to read this before anybody had mentioned it because I heard it on the Galactic Suburbia podcast and Tansy raved about it, and I was ever so glad I picked it up. It was right up my alley. Certainly it was like a book that was written for me, so I was really very happy with it. But I think I can understand where you're coming from with Elizabeth for the middle point, so we'll probably get to the nitty-gritty of that later.
Yep.
Alrighty. So, where do we want to start, guys? Anybody got anything particular that I want to bring up to start off? Dead silence in the room. Right, well, good thing I wrote us a list, hey?
Were you running the thing?
Yeah, that you're assuming here a lot, Elizabeth. I don't usually do it that formally. I just set up the text stuff. All right. So I'm going to actually bring up the thing that annoyed me the most on the forums first up, which was that a whole heap of people on the forums on Sword and Laser decided that this was a manic pixie dream.
I love that
story.
phrase. Pixie dream witch. When I read that, I thought, yes.
I'm not so fussed on the idea of envisioning her that way. What do you guys think? Do you think it fit in with the trope? Do you think that's what it is? Apart from, obviously, the awesomeness of the term.
I don't think it was.
No, I don't
Because
agree.
usually they're like a carefree spirit that kind of wanders in and are all alternative. She wasn't really like that. I mean, certainly she opened his eyes to a certain, like, you know, the reality of the world, but I don't see her as a manic dream pixie.
Well, and those sort of, they're really, that normally happens in a story where it's about the guy, and she comes in and changes his life, and it's about how it affects him, whereas that wasn't the case in this. Like, he was a secondary player, really, in the book. It was all about her, and then more about her friend than him, I thought.
Yeah.
So even if she had some elements of that character, it wasn't about him. It was about her. And I think that's the thing of that trope is the trope is the girl isn't really a fleshed out character. She's just there to do something for the main male protagonist, and that's not really what was happening here.
Elizabeth, you said something then?
Oh, that's what annoyed me about the romance between the two was that he didn't change. Like, normally, you know, I don't read a lot of romance, but you have a romance and the two characters get together and then her vagina fixes all his problems, but that didn't happen in this book. He didn't change after that happened.
But that's kind of what I liked about the romance in some respect, was because I don't like that kind of idea or that trope in romance.
It is a trope and it is annoying, but as you know, in the Manic Pixie Dream Witch trope, that doesn't happen. She doesn't fix him. And I mean, in the Manic Pixie, it's not always fixing him with her vagina, but it didn't happen at all. He didn't change as a person because of their relationship.
Cool. Yeah, I personally, I can see where their argument was coming from, but I think the single factor of the fact that he's not the main character, he's not even really the main secondary character, really sort of kills the concept in the end. And you're right, he doesn't really change either, which means that he doesn't really get fixed by her. They just sort of learn to accept each other as they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, it does go in with the magics are complementary, but he doesn't adjust his attitude or life in any way that I can see, except when he comes back for her at the end. That is the only indication that he gives a shit whatsoever.
I think, and even that, I don't think he's necessarily changed per se, so much as just decided that he would prefer to spend time with her.
Which, I mean, it's nice in a relationship if you want to spend time together, but again, she wasn't pining for him either. She was getting on with her life, which I really like.
But also his entire life had basically, well, not his entire life, but his main purpose had been to try and fight the wood, and you know, he was the primary source of power in its defense. And now that it's all over, and now that she's healed it, you know, what else has he got to do with himself? And so I think he's come back to the village, seeking her out as a sort of a way to sort of rediscover himself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I guess maybe the part where the relationship changes him happens after the end of the story.
But I think that's almost a good thing too, because it meant that it wasn't this sort of really fast process part of all of the events. It was a long-term sort of, because that's what happens, right? No matter what, all of the ideals that people have, we accept each other for who we are and all of that, you do change over time when you have a relationship and you learn to grow with each other and deal with each other's differences and stuff. You do change.
And I mean, it's fine for that to happen in a story. It's just it didn't in this one, and it's almost subverting that trope, which is nice to see.
And it's one of the things I sort of thought was interesting. Hi, Vanessa.
Hello.
We're just talking about the romantic trope part of the story at the moment. Did you want to tell us what you thought of the book? Sorry.
Oh, okay. Hi everyone. Yeah, I really enjoyed the book. I found sorry, what's the main character's name? The girl.
I think it's Agnieszka.
Yes, that's the one. Thank you. I found her a little annoying in how she managed to dirty herself so easily. But after they stopped describing that, I liked it. And yeah, I like the dragon, the whole magic part of it. So yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was easy reading. I almost missed because I was reading on my way to work. I would find myself almost missing my bus stop because I was getting so to the book. So that told me that was a really good story. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
All right. Did anybody have anything else to add on about the Manic Pixie Dream Witch versus and the romance element?
I think maybe with the lack of traditional romance narrative is why it took me so long to get into it, because I was expecting it to be like, it's my first foray into the vaginal fantasy, and not the genre, but with the group, and I was expecting it to be more sort of lovey-doveyness, especially with compared to the other book, which although didn't have as much sex as Uprooted, but there was a relationship connection sort of straight away, like you could see where it was going. Whereas with Dragon and Agnieszka, I didn't feel it for a long time. So
no, it did seem quite sudden, didn't it? Like
yeah,
it was almost like there wasn't even a developed relationship when they slept together. It was kind of like, we're stressed out because of this thing that's happening, and this is a release for us. And then the relationship kind of happened later.
After on,
Yeah.
I think that was a good thing about it, though, is that they didn't sort of sell it as that sort of devoted romantic relationship straight away.
Straight off the bat,
But at the same time, I think I was also, for the romance side of it, especially putting another story on top of it in my head, which I'm not sure if how many people read this one, but it was a while back for Vaginal Fantasy. We read Master of Crows.
I remember, I was thinking about that book a lot when I read this one. It reminded me of that a lot.
It wasn't just me then, thank God.
No.
I was just like, I feel like I'm in Master of Crows, but like a better written one. If you guys didn't read that one, by the way, it was a fun one just for a light read. But yeah.
Was it quick?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. Yeah, it was, and it was just like everybody enjoyed it when we read it. We had a really good time with that book. I think I don't really remember anybody disliking it, but it didn't have the depth that this book had in it, and also had some issues around female character and stuff along those lines. But generally speaking, that relationship of somebody coming in and having difficulty with learning magic trope with the master sorcerer and stuff, and then eventually falling in love with them was a big part of the story, which is why I was just like, did someone copy Masters of Crow here or what? So yeah, I was constantly thinking about that one, and I think that's why for me I saw the romance almost immediately. I was just like, oh shit, they're gonna fall in love. I wasn't expecting that.
I saw it coming, but I don't think the relationship was developed on the page. But even when he was being a complete asshole in the beginning, and I'm sitting there thinking, she's gonna make me like him by the end. I don't want to like him. He's being a jerk. And I was like, I know she's gonna make him be the. I suppose because I knew it was picked for Vaginal Fantasy. If it had just been a Sword and Laser one, I may not have assumed that they would get together, but I was reading it and going, these two are going to get together, and I know that the author is going to make me want them to get together by the end, but right now I just don't want them to, because he's such a jerk, because he kept calling her useless, and it was pissing me off. But she did it. She made me want to like him by the end.
It was so. Talking about his language towards her and how he spoke about her, I don't know, for me I kind of felt like I was listening to Veronica and Tom talking about it on the podcast, and they made it sound like it was all the way through, but I suppose to me, my family, we're really insulting to each other. And that's just sort of how we talk, but it's affectionate, if that makes sense. And so to me, by sort of the later stage of it, I sort of felt like it wasn't having the same impact on me. And I'm just like, is that just me because of my personal experience?
I felt like oh, no, you go, Kirsten.
I was just going to say, I felt like he wasn't as harsh with her towards the end as he was in the beginning. But
I felt like when she came into her magic, she just essentially gave no shits anymore, and she thought, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I don't give a crap what you think.
Which is what
sort
I
of lost the impact.
Yeah. Maybe that's it. That probably works. Okay.
But do you feel like he was just being sort of nasty and mean, or saying mean things to her because he wanted to suppress his growing affection towards her?
Well,
There was sort of like denying it and saying,
possibly.
yeah, that's how I sort of saw it.
Because in the last scene when he returns to the village, and she says something like, she looks at him and the look that she would usually have associated with disdain or like looking down upon her, she realizes now is just him being really uncomfortable and trying to hide his feelings. So that makes sense.
Well, since we're on the romance side of things at the moment, I'm going to bring up the whole Twilight thing and how everybody complains about the fact that there's this teenage girl with a 100-year-old man. Do we have the same problem with this story?
they
I never
actually
found that
made
problem with Twilight anyway. But that's
Sorry?
just me. I never really thought about their age difference in Twilight. It didn't bother me. I mean, he's a vampire, so it kind of made sense. And the fact that he didn't look like a 100-year-old man, like, that never bothered me. But I could see why it would bother some people. And again, with this story, again, I never thought about it.
No, I think they did actually say something about it. Wasn't there something in the book where they sort of talked about their age difference, and she was like, they were like something along the lines of, well, we're both going to live forever now anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
It was sort of.
Was I imagining that? Was that in the book, or am I imagining that?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah,
I think it was in the book.
And I think that for me, that's what made it okay, because it was like they were contemporaries, both in their skills, even if they didn't do them the same way, but also in that they were going to live for a significant period of time. But at the same time, I think the other reason why they could possibly match each other was because she had that, I think it was you, Elizabeth, who said she didn't really care about what he thought in terms of those comments and stuff like that. So it sort of matched his looking down on her at times.
Yeah, I guess the big difference between that and Twilight was that in Twilight, Bella was pretty much being completely controlled by Edward, and in this chick was like, nah, I don't give a shit what you think. I'm not doing. I'm doing what, even at the end. No, I'm not hanging around here just because you want me to stay. I'm going to go live in a wood. I've got stuff to do. So see ya. She wasn't in danger of being manipulated by him because he had this age experience, because she just wasn't going to put up with that.
Yeah. I think also I just swallowed it because all of the YA romance I've read, the younger girl falls in love with the older guy who's a leader or a master or a teacher in some way, and so I'm okay with the trope, and I just ran with it. I didn't even think of it.
See, I think it kind of bothers me slightly because of the teacher aspect of him being her teacher and that, and I was just like, it's kind of naughty. And because I actually experienced that with one of my jobs where I had a co-worker who was dating an ex-pupil. This was in a high school. And, yeah, well, I mean, they didn't date while she was at the school, and she'd been working at the school for 2 years before they dated, so she actually got a job at the school doing a support role. But it was still a bit on the nasty side for me. I was just like, it seems kind of inappropriate still. And yeah, so ever since then I'm kind of really touchy about those types of storylines. I can't do Japanese manga as easily once that's in the story anymore.
I think that's interesting because it's like if it was like a contemporary fiction, like it was like, I don't know, like Paper Towns or something, that I would find that kind of upsetting. But I don't know, if it's historical fantasy, I just assume that it's therefore like not real and it's okay.
And really,
You know?
if you're going to say that, really, you've got to talk about, well, him just randomly kidnapping a chick every 10 years is probably worse than having a relationship with one of them.
It's creepy, isn't
I
it?
suppose that's part of any sort of fantasy book. There's always going to be elements which are a bit questionable because things happen in this world, and because you could be
I did like that he was like absolutely shocked that everybody in the town thought that he was interfering with them. Like, you know, that he was getting them to for his own pleasure. And he's like, what? Why did everyone think that? I told you that I don't do that. And it's like, yeah, but we just assumed that you would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
There are other
like
things that happened
was
in
put
the story
into the
that
story.
freaked me out more.
What was that, Elizabeth? Sorry?
Oh, sorry, I said there were other things in the story that squeaked me out more than the master-student relationship. So maybe they
Let's
overpowered.
take that direction then. What squeaked you out?
Well, Marek, raping Marek, and then nobody cared. Like, after the next day, I tried to rape a chick, and then not even she cares, really. That didn't sit well with me.
I don't know.
Well, she still cared, but I think she realised that there was something more important to deal with, and that she was better able to defend herself now.
She was well, that's like all the stuff with Pazia happened, and she had to go deal with that, and it changed the direction of the story. But even when he came back, she was, and I guess she was more powerful then. She was comfortable with her magic, but still, nobody cared. You know? Like that's a touchy subject for me, the rapiness. But
The dragon seemed more worried about he might die than that he tried to rape her. It's like, you nearly bashed him to death. And it's like, well, he deserved it.
That's the thing, though. Like, it's always built up in those worlds that the repercussions of her killing him in that process would be considerably worse than what if he raped her. Like, it's almost always the case in these sorts of fantasy books that it's like that.
Well, he would he's probably done it to heaps of women, and there's been no repercussions.
Exactly. It's always the difficult part of it. I thought there was enough repercussions in terms of her emotional well-being that I didn't feel it was completely neglected. But at the same time also didn't delay the story, because if we had true repercussions of how she would have been feeling under the circumstances when he came back and everything, it would have probably gotten very muchly in the way of the story continuing. But it's that level of balance that you've got to strike, I suppose. It's really hard.
Yeah, and in telling the story, I just I really wanted at the end Marek to be under the influence of the wood, and that would explain that and explain it away, but it didn't happen for me.
No, he just wasn't. And his devotion to his mother was in such counter side to his general appreciation of women. It was just really frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, given what's going on with your mother and all of that sort of stuff, wouldn't you think that you would be somebody who would have more appreciation of women, but clearly not?
I think because he was raised by his dad, he didn't have like his mother figure was more like an idol, someone that he wanted to be, as opposed to had the influence of being raised by. Therefore, he didn't actually have any females to sort of stand up to him and say, "Oi, back off," because he was the prince. He could just get whatever he wanted.
And his father had quite a bit of bitterness towards his mother because he thought that she'd run off, to go and be with somebody else. And so you don't know how much his father would have been saying to him about women while he was growing up. I mean, this is just obviously speculating on stuff that's not on the page, but yeah.
And then in contrast, you've got Marek's brother, whose name I forget, and how he seemed to be quite devoted to his family, generally cared for his wife, and even though it was like a diplomatic marriage, and the kids. So I think it probably had something to do with, obviously, because he was older than Marek when the mother disappeared, he could remember her, and so he wasn't influenced by the loss as much, I think.
I think we sort of feel like we have to give that sort of justification for it, but at the same time, it suited the needs of the author, I think, to make him more of that character who you cared about, because he created the contrast with Marek, right? And you felt bad when he died, therefore.
I didn't feel bad.
Yeah.
Didn't really miss him. he was in and out in like 2 pages. So I was like, oh, I
I
felt
felt
worse.
bad for the kids mostly,
Yeah.
like losing a good father and stuff, that side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I thought too. I felt for the kids.
Mm.
I really liked the little I've forgotten their names. The little prince that she had to protect. I thought he was really cute, really sweet, trying to protect his sister, being all manly.
It took such an interesting turn. Like, I was just sort of weirded out by the direction it took at certain times. I really wasn't expecting this whole, escaping with the kids thing. And
No. And I think Tom and Veronica talked about that in the Sword and Laser hangout, that it was like 3 books, like the training part in the castle, the tower, whatever, and then the part where she goes to the city, and then the part at the end with the wood were like 3 whole separate books.
Yeah, they're definitely distinct acts in the story.
And she could have done them as 3 different novels, but I'm glad she didn't, because it didn't need it.
Yeah. And I think that makes a lot.
I felt, when she got to court and then she had to play with all the court politics, I thought that wasn't really done very well. Like, it needed to be in more depth with all the bitchy backstabbing, or just not there at all.
See, I was kind of grateful it wasn't in more depth. I was like, I don't like this.
I got frustrated with her in that part, because I'm like, you're not that dumb. Like, you're walking into this city, you know that these people are what these people are going to be like, and you're still not thinking to use that spell. Like, she's walking in, or she's going in the whole time thinking about how filthy she looks, and thinking, oh God, everybody's looking at me because I'm so filthy. And not once did she go, oh, I'll use that spell to put on a nice dress. Instead, she sat there and worried that, oh, look, they're looking at how dirty my dress is. You can fix that. You have a spell to do that.
You're a witch.
Yeah. No, I agree on that point. It was sort of a bit of a ditz moment, but I suppose I kind of liked that she wasn't perfect all the time too. So, and not in that, oh, look how obviously I'm not perfect, but in that, I did something really stupid there.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the part when she was in a castle with like the other wizards and witches and the library and all of that. But the court politics itself, I don't think it even needed to be there.
It was a little bit Mean Girls, some of the parts, like when that woman, started taking her around to parties and kept making snide comments at her that she didn't realise were.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did it even need to be there? What purpose did it serve?
Not much, apart from to show that she wasn't accepted well, that was all.
Yeah, but who cares, because she racked off back to save the country from the woods anyway. So
yeah, I agree. I don't disagree on that. In fact, I think Naomi Novik should read The Goblin Emperor and learn something about doing court politics in an interesting way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because there is a whole novel about court politics.
Exactly. Which you would never think was fascinating, because I hate court politics, but it was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. So I'm going to bring up the magic and the styles that were used. Tansy, when she was speaking about this book when she first introduced it to me, well, I say that like she was talking to me, on the podcast, when she first introduced it and mentioned it, and I was like, oh, that sounds good. She mentions that she really liked the way that it's the female way of doing magic versus the male way of doing magic. And I was wondering if anybody sort of agreed with that, or whether you thought that the representation was, rather than feminist, more sexist, that sort of thing.
I didn't read it as masculine versus feminine, because every other person she meets with magic has like the book magic rather than the natural magic. So I viewed it as more like country, or having grown up near the wood, that influence of magic. But yeah, it's certainly not split on gender or anything.
Yeah, I never read it that way either. And when I listened to the Sword and Laser podcast, someone had put on. I don't normally get around to reading the forums, but because they sort of brought it up on the podcast, and someone had said, there's a quote from whoever posted it. It says, he's like a fussy music theory professor forced to cut an album with an improvising jazz musician. And I thought that's a really good way of putting it. Like, you know, like a classical music versus jazz. Like, she just kind of plays by ear and does what seems right. Whereas he's like, no, you have to have this and this and this and do it. Yeah. So I didn't see it as masculine, feminine either. And I know I wish I'd come up with that analogy myself, but yeah, that made perfect sense to me.
That's actually even better, because the one I had written down here that somebody else had mentioned was that he was a water wheel and she was the river. He just does things over and over again the same way. She's the river and just goes wherever things take her. And I was like, that's really good, but that's even better. I like that.
Yeah, I can't take credit for it. Sorry.
Yeah, but you still found it and brought it to us. So awesome, you.
Well done. But at the same time, isn't it common in a lot of fantasy novels where the females tend to have like that Mother Earth connection? The powers tend to relate to nature. He was obviously like, I didn't, like when I'm reading it, I didn't think of it as male versus female, but I did think to myself, oh yes, of course her power happens to be with trees. Like it couldn't be like cool, you know, flames and things. Like she could do that, but her natural affinity was nature, and I thought that was kind of commonplace. But I still enjoyed it. I actually kind of got freaked out a bit. I couldn't read it before I went to bed because I started having nightmares about creepy trees. Yeah. The images of being stuck in a tree was pretty gross. I didn't like that. But, yeah, no.
I was kind of the opinion that if you're going to be in prison somewhere in a tree, sounds pretty good to me.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. It sounds wonderful until you realise they're like giant praying mantises just crawling all over you. I'm like,
yeah.
Now I'm not cool with trees anymore.
Yeah, I thought that Tansy's view of it was really interesting, given that one of the wizards back at the city was actually female. And I was like, how did you get this is the female brain versus the male brain idea? Like, when she described it, I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. But reading it, I was like, that doesn't sort of fit in with the idea there. So
I think that's why I was really attracted to the I forgot, I'm terrible with names, I'm so sorry. The blacksmithing wizard.
Yeah.
Because she was just so different. Like she had this really masculine power, but she was completely feminine. I think that was fantastic.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, I really liked it too.
Sorry, someone's pinging me. He can wait. The thing that I thought was interesting is that for me as a teacher, I sort of looked on it as just different learning styles, more so than anything else. It was the ways people's brains work. Some people learn better by reading books and following the formula, and other people learn better by just doing and having the practical side of things. And that's all it was to me, is just that for him, because he's the teacher in the school, right, who's used to teaching in a particular way where you don't get to do a lot of the practical necessarily. You read the books and you learn vicariously in that respect, whereas she was hey, you just feel it out. And, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Sorry, you
so
go.
Does that make her a more, because it comes more naturally to her, does that mean she's more powerful in a sense because she just gets it, whereas he has to sort of follow a formula?
And I think that frustrated him a bit too. Like he was like, but how can you just do it when this is supposed to be impossible? And that was like, I think that was a lot of his anger towards her at the beginning, was because he just didn't understand how she was doing this stuff that he couldn't do.
He was breaking all the rules that he'd been following all his life. But I think that the thing is that there's benefit to both sides, and I think that was really not conveyed as much as I would have liked, which was that there are benefits to both sides of anything along those lines. When it comes to learning, there is benefit to following the books because you get to learn from the people who came before you, right? And so that you can understand what is possible and to reach out for it. But when you don't know what's possible, there's benefit to that too, but there's also a lack of knowing what directions you could take. And so that can lead to both problems as well as new discoveries. Hey, G.
And I really liked how explicitly Novik said that by putting the two styles together, you can create so much more. Like it's more than the sum of its parts.
Exactly.
And that was how she described the relationship between them too. She wasn't explicit in their relationship, but in their magic coming together and working together. It was a metaphor for their relationship, which I thought was really nice.
Well, to me, that seems to me to be the major part of their attraction. There's another side to it that I thought, but like I know that for myself and my partner, because we work together, part of the reason I think we work really well is we don't spend all of our time together despite the fact that we're working together, but also that we complement each other on different sides, and so we help each other in terms of what we do. So I think that's a really important part of it. The other side that I think was really important for her in terms of having a relationship with him was that he, even though he wasn't of the valley, wait, was it the valley?
I can't remember.
I
read it really fast, so I reckon because I slammed through it so fast, there's little details that I didn't pick up on.
See, I finished it ages ago, and I'm like, the details, I can't remember. Anyway, let's say valley, we know what we mean. That area, like he wasn't of the area, but he knew the area more so than anybody else who was going to live as long as she was going to. And so, especially with him returning and she can introduce him to her family, as they grow up, as they grow old together, well, if they grow old together, whatever, they would at least have that connection so that she had that connection back to her family throughout her life.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm really putting a lot into this story that wasn't there. Anyway. All right, what's on my list?
G, do you want to tell us what you thought of the book?
Oh, yes.
Just arrived.
I just had to go read someone's review quickly to remind myself as well, because it's been a while since I read it. But something that we were talking about, Kirsten, the covers of them, I ended up going and getting this cover just because it was at the bookstore. But the other cover reminded me a lot of the Farseer trilogy that we so love.
Oh, I've just started reading the second one.
Oh, I want to reread them so bad, but I haven't got time. But not only was the cover reminiscent of it, but the style of story as well. Like, not the writing, but the fantasy, you know, apprentice to a wizard, and it's very typical fantasy plot, really. And the review I just read said that it felt like rereading one of your favorite books for the first time, and that is totally what I felt like. Like, it's my style of story exactly, and it felt like rereading a favorite book for the very first time again. So I was really, that is exactly how I felt about it, and I am very glad to have it on my shelf, no matter what cover it's got. So, and I'll definitely reread it again. It was just
having on the shelf.
It was very nostalgic feeling reading it.
Did anybody else feel the same about it in that respect? That it felt like you were reading a fantasy book you'd read before?
No.
It kind of...
Maybe I haven't read enough.
It felt like the kind of fantasy book that I used to read a lot of that I haven't read in a while, like the Robin Hood style ones. That I feel like, I haven't had enough of lately, I guess. So I get what you mean, It's like, this is what I love about fantasy. This is this type of story that I love.
Yeah,
and it's like,
that's it.
And I was partly happy that it was only a standalone book because I liked where it ended, and I liked the fact that I can pass it on to people and say, hey, you can read this and you don't have to wait for the others to come out, because I've already lent it to a friend because I told her I had the second. I just bought the second book in the latest Robin Hood one. So there was the Fitz and the Fool ones, and it's only the second one only just came out, and it's like this fat. I should go and get it later, and it's like, oh my god, how am I gonna... Not that it'll take me long to read, but it's so hard to hold. But she won't. My friend who loves the same series, she won't read it because she doesn't read them until they're all out. Because she has a lot more self-control than I do, and I have to just read them when they come out, and then forget what was happening in them by the time I read the next one. But
just reread them.
It's finding
For all
time
those
to
people who
reread
have time.
things I've already read, though. doesn't.
Gosh, I'm dreading when the next in the Stormlight Archive comes out because I have to read these two massive books by Brandon Sanderson before I can read the next one. Dreading
I
it.
haven't gotten to those ones yet.
As much as I love the covers of those, I'm thinking I'm just buying the ebook version of it just purely because it'll be easier to read.
Oh gosh, yes. And actually, when the second one, just to be off topic here, the second one when I downloaded it, the Kindle told me, this might take longer to download than normal because it's a bigger book.
Yeah. Well, I get actually frustrated just with the concept of buying it because those ones, I can't get the British covers, which I like very much, without buying them as two separate books. And I'm like,
yeah, I've got them as two. Yeah.
And I'm like, I would prefer to pay once and get the book rather than pay twice. So,
it could be because of binding that they've done that, because when you start getting to
they're massive. I'll grab
they
them.
just don't bind very easily.
Yeah, I know.
I might get up and go and show you my book then.
Okay. Well, guys, anybody else need to go get some books they want to show us?
I'm not at home, so no.
That's just the first book and the two covers, and the covers are so pretty.
They're so pretty, though. That's the thing. Like, I want them because they're pretty, pretty covers. But I'm like, no, I have to pay twice the price. But I suppose I'm getting twice the books.
That's what birthdays are for. I just said to everybody, buy me this, buy me that, and then I've got them all.
Anyway, I heard tell that series is going to have 7 books in it, so I'm definitely holding off on that one.
10.
10? No! The one thing you can say is at least Brandon Sanderson is prolific in terms of writing. So,
most definitely.
Because that's my other problem. Like, I don't mind reading a series while it's being progressed through, as long as I know that they're going to come out at reasonable intervals. But like when you take like Song of Ice and Fire and things like that, and the frustration behind it, I'm just like, no.
I've only actually just started reading them. I'm on to the second book because I worked at Borders and it was recommended to me all the time by the cute guys that came in. But when I heard that the TV show was coming out, I thought I'd wait, see if I liked it. And then after that, I didn't want it to ruin the experience of watching the show. I wanted to be surprised. But now that the stories are diverging, I thought, okay, I've got a year to catch up before the next season. So I'm really enjoying them.
Second book's where I gave up. I was like, nah, had enough.
Oh, really? I think it's fascinating because having seen the show, I kind of half know where the characters are going, but then to be able to to be able to pick out the differences in both the story and the characters, and then because after I finish the book, I rewatch the season. It's just it's mind blowing. I love it.
Kirsten, did you get a book that you were going to show us?
Oh, this is my. I put the dust jacket back on.
Oh,
wow!
Lovely.
It's pretty fat, and I don't know whether it's really that long because I think there's quite a bit of space. I don't know if you can see. There's quite a bit of space around the edges and stuff. I reckon it could have been smaller, but
you still don't want to drop that on your face, though.
Oh my god! I don't do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, me too.
So.
I do that with my iPad. It hurts.
Yeah, I've done that with the iPad. But this is the dust jacket. I take it off to read it, but it's so pretty.
Aren't they pretty?
Actually, that's the one problem I had with this cover is because it's so matte and white. I was stressing the whole time that I was going to leave dirty fingerprints on it. I was like, washing my hands.
I bought the hardcover, so I did the same thing. Like, I just take the dust jacket off while I'm reading it. And when I lent it to my friend, I didn't lend her the dust jacket. It just came.
Clever.
This is just easier to just hand someone the book without the dust jacket, and then it's like, well, even if it gets marks on the book, I can put the dust jacket back on, and it's nice. So
yeah, pure bananas. All right, I'm going to bring us back on topic because, as usual, we've gone off topic. What a surprise! So I thought what I'd bring up is the fact that the main relationship in the book was actually the friendship, and what everybody thought about that versus the romance, and was it a good case of having it all basically in a story?
I really
I
like
keep waiting
that.
for this shoe to drop with Kazia. I was really wary of her the whole time after she got out of the tree. So I couldn't trust their friendship because I was sure that the wood has affected her in more ways than we knew about, and that she was going to turn around and, you know, be the bad guy in the end.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen, so I felt a bit bereft, actually.
But I think that's kind of what was good, because it was sort of, for me anyway, I was exactly the same. I was expecting at any moment that it would turn around, but at the same time it didn't, and so it was good because it sort of defied my expectation in that respect. Like it didn't.
Oh, definitely. I really like when that happens, but I couldn't trust that Kazia at all because I was sure that she was going to turn around. So probably would have to go back and reread it, knowing that she's not going to betray anybody in the end. But I mean, there were subtle hints that she was affected by the wood. Yeah. So I guess my opinion of their friendship is clouded by what I thought was going to happen and then never did.
I like that she left at the end, that Agnieszka didn't have, like, all three, didn't have Kasia, didn't have the dragon. Like, she had one or the other, which is good. And that Kasia made a life for herself, so that was good too.
Yeah, what I liked about her was sort of in the beginning when she got kidnapped and Agnieszka had to go and rescue her, I thought, oh, you know, she's going to be this damsel in distress kind of character. And then she turned out to be really kick-ass as well. And I really, really liked that even though she was kind of the normal person without power, she was really, really cool and a really great character on her own. She wasn't just, oh, yeah, the friend that doesn't have power. She was a well-developed character. And I loved that. I loved that it was sort of the go-getter and that you could count on her in a tough spot to take care of herself. And, yeah.
I also really liked that they didn't neglect the part of their relationship where Agnieszka had spent her life expecting her to go to work for the dragon, and that there was that sort of expectation that she would do that sacrifice, and that they didn't neglect the negative feelings that came out from around that, both between her and Kasia, as well as Kasia and her mother. So.
Yeah.
That was one of my favourite things, was when they're in the when they're doing that whole truth spell, trying to get the wood out of Kasia, and that they could both see that they were both jealous of each other. I think that was really good.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a truth spell?
I don't know. I don't
think I want to know everything all the time.
Rather not know.
To use at particular times, not all the time.
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry, but I've got to leave early. So I'll see you guys maybe next time. I don't know when.
To meet you.
Yeah, it's been nice chatting with you, and finally to read a VF book and a Sword and Laser book as well. So, see you guys. Bye.
Bye, Vanessa.
Bye.
Did anybody have anything about that one they wanted to mention? Okay.
I didn't love it as much as you all appeared to. It's not one that I think I'd reread.
Erin, it's not the first time we've had, where there's a group of us lovers and there's somebody. I'm quite often the one who didn't like it in amongst everybody else, so it's fine. You don't have to have that extra opinion.
You're not going to kick me out. That's good.
It makes it an interesting conversation when everybody has different opinions. If everybody, thinks exactly the same thing, that's when we end up getting off track even quicker, because we're all like, yep, we all agree with that, and then move on. Whereas when you get some difference of opinion, that's when you get the more interesting conversation anyway.
True.
Yeah. The number of 3-hour-long hangouts we've done where the book discussion was only 20 minutes because we all loved it is quite phenomenal. Anyway. All right, so I was going to bring up the pacing next, because if there was one thing that I really actually did have a complaint about, is that when she went to the city, I felt like the pacing just changed significantly, and I had some problems at that point. In fact, that's the only reason it took me 3 days instead of like a day and a half like you, Kirsten, to read, was because at that point it was easy to put down.
Yeah, and I think maybe I didn't notice that because I did read it so fast, and that was partly because I was like, oh crap, my book took so long to get here, I need to read this in time for the hangout. And I knew that I wasn't going to get time to read it in the later half of the week when I was at work. So I got it halfway through Monday, and I was like, well, I need to have this finished by tomorrow, really, because I knew I wouldn't get any other time. So I didn't notice any pacing issues because I powered through it anyway. But I think if I'd been reading it a bit slower, I might have noticed that.
That's half the reason it took me so long to get into, was that it just kind of didn't seem to go anywhere fast, and then it did like a whole bunch of stuff, and then it was slow again. So it took me a while. I enjoyed it, but yeah, it just, I don't know, annoyed me at the same time. I felt compelled to read it because I really wanted to know what was happening, but then I would sit there and find myself grumping at it at the same time. So it's kind of frustrating.
Gee, did you find it had that same thing that the Robin Hood ones has, where it's like not much is happening for ages, but it's not about that anyway. It's about the character, and so you're reading it because you just want to keep reading this character. Were you?
Yeah.
Did you?
I was gonna say I got frustrated at the stuff in the city because like no one seemed to be, I don't know, communicating with her at all. Like she's just wandering around, attending parties, not really sure who she's supposed to be talking to or what exactly is going on, and I was just like,
really annoying wizard dude.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, like that's it. Just leave, go back. The dragon was better, and like before that, I was all frustrated at the dragon, you know. And I'm like, no, go back.
Yeah,
Maybe
you already complained about the
make the dragon look good.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And
that's a good point.
Maybe that's an interesting point because, there was that beginning where you're like, man, the dragon's such a jerk. And then you get to the court and you go, actually, that was actually when I did start liking him.
Compared to everyone else.
Because he was much better than all the others. It's like, well, actually, the nice one.
He was also that missing factor too. I think that you'd sort of gotten to the point where, well, at least for me, I was starting to get, and suddenly he wasn't there anymore at all, and I was like, we didn't really finish that part of the story. Finish it.
Makes the fun.
And you kind of also got that thing of the way he was speaking to her at the beginning, and you know how harsh he was and everything. You kind of go, well, but at least he was speaking his mind and saying what he thought when he thought it. Whereas when you go to the court, everybody's, you know, being nice to her face, but are actually bitches behind her back, or you know, completely dismissing her and not even giving her a chance, which he didn't really do. So you did see the better side of him, I guess, from that.
I felt so bad at the fact that so many of those wizards died. I was just like, this massive resource just being obliterated in seconds. Okay, everyone agrees with me. That was that. Good. Awesome. I love it when that happens. Okay. But yeah, so so it seems to be like we've got two different opinions on terms of the pacing. Like some people thought it was sort of the beginning that was slow, and other people thought it was, or maybe agreed that it was when she went to the city that it got slow.
I think it depends on what you want from the story, because I really like character-driven story. So the beginning was perfect, right up until she went to the city. I really enjoyed it, and I always find the fight scene to go far too fast. I always get confused. So the end was difficult for me, like the big battle in the tower at the end, and then going into the wood at the end was too fast for me. But I thought the court, maybe just because it was tedious and unnecessary anyway. It just felt like it took a bit longer. When she left and they ran away with the kids, that was great. It really picked up again then, and it was good again.
Yeah, I agree. As soon as she left, it was like, now we're interesting again.
Yeah.
So it could just be that the city was just very boring.
Yeah, I certainly agree on that one. All right. So what do you guys think about as the wood as a representation as an antagonist, basically, instead of having an individual, although we found out a bit more of that later on, but generally the wood, this omnipresent
I think that was way creepier than if it had been a person.
It's totally creepy. Right.
I think for me, I was constantly thinking, but why?
Yeah.
I was just
That's
like,
actually what drew me into the book. If I didn't have the creepy forest, I would have got bored straight away. I like the mystery of it, and I like because knowing that it it's not set in Poland. That's sort of where the author's heritage comes from, and it's alluded to with the name of I can't remember. I'm so bad with names, but like the neighboring country being Rosnia, like it's the whole Polish-Russian border, and there's an old forest there, and so knowing that it's sort of based on mythologies around that kind of made it more interesting to me, and I kept waiting to hear, to figure out what the big bad in the forest was. Otherwise, I got bored really quickly with Agnieszka and the whole dragon thing. It wasn't until the end that I was like, yeah, all right.
So, question then was, were you disappointed then to discover that the wood was essentially sentient and
I like that.
Right.
It surprised me because I thought she would go something completely different. I don't know what, but just something completely random. But then at the same time, because it tied in with the whole ancient civilization and the tomb, and so she had set up clues as to what was coming. I liked it, and the fact that she was redeemable, even though she was evil. I like that. Yeah. She wasn't outright evil. They explained that she'd lost her connection with her family, and
it's kind of funny that feeling at the end when you think she's the antagonist the whole way through, and then all of a sudden you realise that her story is a sad story, and you feel compassion for her, and she's not evil all of a sudden, Yeah.
I like when it's not just like this relentless, malevolent evil. If there's a reason, I can get behind it. But if it's just like shit's going down and it's bad for no reason, like I Song of Ice and Fire, I give up straight away. I can't do it.
I agree. That's exactly why I was wanting to understand the why, because I was like, why would a wood be bad unless there was some reason for it?
Yeah. And that's where the comparison to fairy tales come in, I guess, is the evil wood and that, which I didn't see at all, any comparison to fairy tales. So maybe I need to
love fairy tales.
reread.
Well, it's supposed to come from a Polish fairy tale, which means that we're quite probably not familiar with it in that particular one, or the style of it or something. So, yeah, it was apparently a fairy tale that Naomi had been read by her mother when she was young, that she converted.
Apparently it had to do with, at the end when Agnieszka is walking through the forest and she runs into the girl with the cow, apparently that girl and her cow are actually the heroes of the original folk story. So that was a little clue for others that knew it was other people.
Yeah.
That's good to know, because that means that she's, in some respects, she seems to have told the backstory of what's actually in the fairy tale.
The fairy tale, which I haven't been able to find a copy of yet. I'm still looking. But also the whole Baba Yaga, reading, because she was just called Yaga or Jaga. I kept saying Jaga for ages.
Yeah.
That I didn't pick up on it, and I kept thinking Jaga's a really silly name until they said Baba Yaga, and then it made complete sense because I'd read stories about her and she has a walking chicken house. It's amazing, and I was like, oh, Baba Yaga, she's so cool, and then I got really excited that maybe Agnieszka was going to have these amazing powers and a really interesting story. So I don't know, I kept expecting more things to happen, and I was slightly disappointed with what happened, but at the same time, I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm so confused. very conflicted with this story.
Elizabeth, you were saying something then?
Yes, I was. It was really important and relevant. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, dear. I'm sure it'll come back to you.
Yeah, no, I think it was, I recognized the Baba Yaga reference, but I don't know any tales except I know of the name, so that didn't trigger any bells for me either in the fairy tale world. But.
So there was apparently a theory, I'm not sure if it was Tom and Veronica's theory that Baba Yaga was actually Agnieszka, because Baba Yaga is mentioned as being caught in time. Yeah, and so that Agnieszka essentially trained herself.
That's what I kept waiting to happen. I kept waiting for that to happen and never did. I got really disappointed.
Never occurred to me, not once.
No, me either.
No, I like it.
Yeah, I like it. I can't think of anything in the book that sort of gave me that idea at all. But at the same time, I'm good with it if that's what actually happens. So.
I think the affinity she had to Yaga's magic gave it away, and then the fact that she could go into the woods certain parts. Sorry, Elizabeth, you talk. I'm going to be quiet now.
No. I'm trying to butt in. If she is Baba Yaga, though, that means she is the only one with that magic, whereas otherwise she's just come from a long line of people who grew up in the valley who have that natural affinity rather than it's just her, which
that's
I
what
don't
I
like
thought.
that theory.
Yeah, but when you look at it that way, that makes me sad about the theory. It's like, oh, that's not so nice.
But then there's the other girl right at the very end that she's like, oh, come and find me in the forest, because she sort of noticed that she had the same power.
True.
Yeah.
I love the fact that this ending was really her helping and healing the forest, even though that goes back into the trope of a female in how they use their power. Yeah, and all of that side of things. It's at the same time, it just made me happy. So I was like, I can live with that.
Yeah.
It made me happy because it made her happy. Like, she wasn't doing it for anyone other than herself. She chose to stay there, even though the dragon decided to go elsewhere. So I like that.
That was actually my biggest concern with her going to the city in a lot of respects, because I was like, they've already talked about how the king and all of that try to use the dragon for their needs and that sort of stuff, and how the other wizards have the same thing happen to them, and she had to go there and swear loyalty, and I was like, I don't really want her to get used that way. So much happy with that turn of outcome in that respects, but yeah, I would prefer it if she wasn't the only one, so that's a good thing. So along with this, I also mentioned that some of the forum posts mentioned this one as well. They didn't like the fact that she developed her skills so quickly.
Yeah, that really annoyed me.
I don't feel like she was
happened.
developing it though. I felt like it was almost like a natural apathy to it, you know.
And there was still some stuff that she couldn't do. But,
the struggle with
to
like
practice
the theory of it. Yeah, it was just like a natural thing for her, I felt. And especially because she had the affinity with the wood as well, the nature side of the wood. So, yeah.
Like the foraging for berries, it mentioned that as a kid she could always find something that no one else could. So it's like she had that natural affinity, and she was practicing without even realizing she was practicing. So when she was trying to learn all the spells, it didn't work for her because that's not what she was accustomed to. She was trying to force her magic into something that it wasn't. It was wild. And so when she found Yaga's book, it made sense because though all those spells weren't just like notes, they weren't actual like outright directions. They were just like this kind of works.
That's feeling.
Yeah. It's kind of like cooking, like someone who's grown up cooking just by, watching mum in the kitchen and just tasting things and trying things together and going, oh yeah, I think this would go nice together, and putting it together, compared to somebody that follows the recipe to the letter. That's kind of what, it made me think of.
The Cook and the Chef TV show. But yeah,
it's just like when I try and teach Matt how to cook things, he'll say, well, how many minutes do you cook that for? And I go, well, I don't know, you cook it until it's done. And he's like, no, I can't handle that. I'm like, oh, yeah. I don't count how many minutes it takes, I just know when it's ready.
I also wonder sort of for us, how many of us, when we learned how to cook, we did sort of follow a guideline in the original, and we've just gotten comfortable with our skills, and so now we know how to do those sorts of things.
Yeah.
As opposed to with her, it was sort of this just automatic, innate ability, and I can see why that would bother some people because, that's hard to believe.
At the same time, like she read Yaga's book, and then she came up with certain spells that then she kind of adapted for herself. So it wasn't like she just thought of them on the spot. She kind of went, okay, well, what is it, the Fulma dish? And then she's like, well, that one kind of works. What if I use just Fulma or whatever? So I think the cooking analogy is good. Like she got the basic recipe from a book and then just kind of invented her own dish.
I wonder if people's problem with it then comes from even how their own heads work.
That's true.
I do
If they're
think
not
it
into
happened really
experimenting, yeah,
fast.
they probably wouldn't understand it.
I can see how it happened, and I can see why it happened, and look, I cook like that, it's fine. But I think in terms of the story, it was just like, oh, I know nothing, and then all of a sudden I'm calling down lightning. It was really quick. That's all.
Yeah. And I suppose you could say that, like we were talking about before, there could have been a whole book of her in the apprentice stage learning stuff.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
before we ever came to that third act where she was being able to do all these amazing things. And for most fantasy stories, that's what would happen. You know, you would have that longer series of books. You know, usually most fantasy, you got a series of 3 in most cases, and you would have that whole first book where they're learning their way, and then the second book where something else happens, and then the third book is when their power really comes into their own and they manage to solve the problem.
They defeat
And
the
with this,
evil
it was much quicker because it was all in one book, and it felt like, and it not just in one book, but it felt like not a lot of time had passed. Although I think there was quite a bit of time when she was in the tower. I can't really remember.
I think it might have been about half a year or something.
About 6 months, I think.
Oh, I feel like it was 4 weeks or something short like that. But also it is YA, not adult fantasy, so all the details are going to be squished up even further because that's just how YA works.
If you wanted to improve that particular section of the book so that it was more acceptable generally, I think what I would have suggested to her is not to extend how long she wrote for, but to convey more time having processed during that period.
Yeah.
Or even what happened was she went into the wood to save her best friend who she loved, and she came out of it empowered, and that's where the confidence for the magic came from. So I think if that was played up a bit more, you could explain, yes, I can cast spells now, but I didn't feel like that happened.
Yeah. All right, well, we've come to the end of my list, guys, so it's up to you now. It's all on you. My responsibility is over. Done.
Did anyone read the other?
No, and I've been meaning to for ages, and I just didn't get to it. It's been on my list for a long time.
It was another series that was recommended to me when I was working at Borders. So I like that I'm getting to read things that I should have read a long time ago. But no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. Much prefer to Uprooted, actually.
Still on my list. I will get to it. But, you know, the list is long. And then I keep doing things like reading things that just come out.
Hey,
I started going back.
The read list has to be a strict list. I only say that because I was just thinking that this morning about myself. I was looking at my to-read list. I was like, gosh, there's a lot of things on here that have been on here for years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Mine's the same. Yeah.
Giving myself permission to get away with that one.
And see, I'd like to know ahead a bit more time what the next book is going to be too for Vaginal Fantasy, because it's like then I could decide whether I was going to read it or not. But I don't know.
She did it for a while and then she stopped. So
yeah. So we'll see. But I don't think I'm going to read the next Sword and Laser one. So it doesn't really appeal to me. And like, well, I might get a few more of my.
Very rarely read the laser piece.
Sorry, Elizabeth, I missed that.
I said very rarely read the laser pics. I'm not in Vaginal Fantasy, but I very, very rarely read the laser pics for the Sword and Laser either. I try and read the fantasy and branch out.
I've actually quite enjoyed quite a few of the laser pics, but this one's really old school classic, and I usually get very pissed off at those. So.
I do too. That's why I've been avoiding, because Tom has picked some really old school ones in the last 12 months or so. But I did read Station 11, and it didn't suck. So that's high praise coming from me.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. It's just haven't really. Even like when people have said they've enjoyed those ones, it doesn't appeal to me, and I'm not.
Or there's The Martian.
Yeah,
oh my goodness! After you read The Martian, and I thought, oh my god, I have to read it, and I did the Audible, and it was so good, and now I'm actually going to go and pay to see it in the cinema, and I hate the cinema. It's such a rip-off. So
Yeah.
good things do happen.
We're almost going to
Yeah.
have a hangout just to debrief after the movie, I think, because
Yeah, and I didn't finish The Martian in time for our hangout because I think I read it, 2 days after you had the hangout or something, because I just didn't quite get to it in time, and then it only took me a day or two to read, and I was like, damn it, and then I rewatched the hangout and I kept going to say things because I kept forgetting that it wasn't actually live. Like, oh, that's right, you guys can't hear me.
that's always
yeah.
the problem when you don't join in the hangout. I actually, because this is why when Matt didn't come the other night, I was like, just join in, Matt, because I know he was working and that's why he couldn't. But I'm like, I would prefer to join in even if I'm only part way through the book, because the watching afterwards is so hard. Sorry for those people who are watching this hangout because they couldn't come tonight. I know how you're feeling right now. Yeah. No, it's a hard one, but yeah, I think a debrief after the movie would probably be a good idea, even if we tag it on to the end of another hangout, because I think I'm going to need it.
Even just to binge. I had to pay $20 to sit in a cold cinema for 2 hours.
I'm like,
God.
that'd be nice if I could find a chance to go out to actual movies in a while.
I'm just really excited because Nye read the book. Look, Nye listened to the book with me, and so we're both like, "When's it coming out? When's it coming out?" Did you guys see that video I posted yesterday on the Land Down Under page with the latest released video from the Aries?
No, I don't think I've watched that yet.
Oh, they for those of you who aren't on Land Down Under, I apologise. In anticipation of The Martian coming out, they're releasing these videos, which is like they're not just the normal trailers. These are actual videos that they're pretending like the Ares missions has actually gone, and they're doing all of these on the planet Earth before they arrived on Mars. These little videos.
deGrasse Tyson, yes.
Yes.
Very cool promo.
Yeah. So they did this thing with deGrasse Tyson where he was like talking about the Ares mission and what they're doing, and he does it a la like how he actually does shows now, and it's so awesome.
Oh no, I didn't click it yet. I didn't get a chance to. I'll have to watch that.
If you're looking for it and you're on the Land Down Under page, there's actually a channel on YouTube which is the Aries group, so they're worth looking up just to have a look, because there's one where they do Matt Damon does like a little thing in character where he's interviewing all the members of the crew.
I saw a tweet about that. I wasn't quite sure what it was for, so I'll have to go back and find it.
It's all this lead-up media that they're doing with it, which I think is brilliant. It's absolutely a brilliant idea with to lead up to the movie in this way, because that's what would be happening, right? As the mission was going to Mars, these little bits of media would be going on.
Be on the news all the time.
Yeah.
I know that you've already discussed this book, but that's the thing that actually annoyed me most about The Martian, with the media stuff in the book.
Well, this is good stuff.
Not realistic. This is cool media.
Yeah, this is different. It's not the background part of the media. It's what you would be watching if you were watching TV, and it's just happening. So and the disaster hasn't happened, or disaster. Not to give away anything, although apparently all the trailers give it away.
Don't they always?
Yeah, and I think there's so much more than what's in the trailer anyway. Like,
well, that's what they were saying in the sort of laser hangout. I'm calling them all hangouts now. Podcast was that apparently people were complaining that the Martian trailers were spoilery, and I'm like, guys, it happens like in the first chapter, of course.
Yeah.
There are parts.
It's because people are thinking it's all about that, and it's not. It's about the science of surviving that,
Yeah, and the potatoes. It's all about the potatoes.
Yes. All I can do is actually hate potatoes after that.
I was thinking, why doesn't he eat like a potato every second day, so that he doesn't end up just eating nothing but potatoes at the end? Because his other food would have lasted. It wouldn't have gone off. It was all like packaged up stuff. And I'm like, couldn't you have one of your protein bar things on one day and then eat potatoes the next day? because he had them grown for quite a while, and then
Yeah, but
like
it was-
and then have another protein bar the next day. So you're not just eating potatoes for God knows how many weeks on end, because you would I would go insane. And I suppose there's a difference, you know,
I
you
love
eat it
potatoes.
raw, but then, yeah, but I like potatoes with like butter and salt and pepper and you know,
Flavour.
like just a plain microwaved potato. I think you'd get sick of that pretty damn quick.
Dirt.
I think that
I
it
wonder
doesn't
if the
matter how
dirt would
much
taste different.
yeah, probably. I think that no matter how much you like potatoes, you would get sick of them if you had to eat them every single day.
And raw. Yeah.
He did microwave them. He tried eating them raw once and was like, yeah, that's not good. So he microwaved them all, remember, and then he freeze dried them. But I'm like, yeah, and I've had freeze dried mashed potatoes, and it's not nice.
Anyway.
But yeah,
Martian.
sidetracked. Sorry.
No, I don't care. We've done my points. I'm all happy. And not only that, we stayed on topic for well over an hour. We are impressive tonight.
That never happens.
No, it really doesn't. So
I feel like
yeah.
I should apologise for being here and keeping you on track.
Me bitching about the book.
We actually do like being on track. It's just that I think sometimes we all have such similar thoughts and feelings on things that we tend to finish really quickly or just easily get off track. I don't know. What do you guys think? Why do we go off track all the time?
Because
think
books
having-
remind us about other things.
And I think also having read so many of the same other books, quite often we'll get on that tangent where we start talking about one book and then it reminds us of another book that a lot of us have read. So then we start talking about that and it branches out from there.
True. I love The Martian right now, so yeah.
Yeah.
And the Robin
have
Hood
to go read
discussion, I've only just discovered Robin Hood
Oh my
this
god,
year.
so
And
good.
So I'm on the second the second one fits in the fall. But it was the first series, the Farsi.
The Assassin.
Yeah. So
Yeah, they're my favourite
My
ones. Liz, though.
Assassin. Yeah,
One
and,
day I'm going to have to go
and
read
my
that.
husband.
Sorry.
Yeah, my husband reads so much faster than me, so he's way ahead. I'm like, don't tell me anything.
no, don't let him spoil it. Oh man, I love that. It's my hands down favorite series ever, and because it's a series of series. Yeah.
The Uprooted, like the live ships and the trees.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't want to give it away because that's a major plot spoiler, but oh yeah, and it also reminded me of the Wish Stones, Terry Brooks, Wish
Yeah.
Stones, Shara, and the Yellow Chris. Which again, I don't want to give too much away because that's major spoiler. So crap.
Please don't. I think I have to go and read Robin Hood because you guys keep gushing over it. I know I read some of it like years and years ago when it was new, but I never really got into it at that time. So
I love them. They're on my favourite
You'll like
bookshelf.
the full. I think you'll like the full, Mel.
Yeah, you will.
yeah, I think the Fool's the one I read. That's what makes me nervous.
Did you read the full books before you read the Assassin books?
I didn't. I don't think I knew that they were connected.
Yeah.
I did this with the David Eddings Malloreon in the Belgriad. I read the Malloreon first and spent the whole time going, I feel like this series has more going on in it than I'm actually being presented with. And then someone explained to me that the two, because someone just told me, oh, you should read David Eddings, the Malloreon and the Belgriad. And I thought, oh, they're two separate series.
Yeah. See, I mean, you could read the full books without having read the Assassin ones, but you're really missing a whole lot of stuff that sets
And
it
that
up,
could be
and
why.
you don't understand why their relationship is the way it is because
Yeah.
you haven't had 3 books of them being in this, you know. Yeah.
See, that could be why, but I could be wrong too. In all honesty, I think I was in high school when I read it, and I could be wrong.
It's a while ago.
Yeah, I am 36. So we are talking, it won't be 20 years, but we're talking close to 20 years since I actually tried reading it. And so whatever it was, I don't remember, but whatever it was, I didn't really get it. And but I think I was also really embedded in the Pern series at the time, and so it was just like, this isn't dragons, I want Pern. So yeah.
Funny. I was flicking through all my pages that I always read, and one of the pages that I go to all the time is a Tumblr for Lucy Knisley, who's one of my favourite comic artists. She does like travelogue type comics, and her most recent little thing she's put up on Tumblr is about the Robin Hobb books, and I'm like looking at it going, man, like she's got so many things that she puts up that I think is the same as me, because she's a big X-Files fan as well, and I'm like, how can she like all the same things as me? But the little cartoon the little comic that she did, it's like, yep, that's pretty cool. I just put it there.
That is, I must admit, that really does make me want to go read it. Just the whole, I've been obsessed with this for 20 years.
Yeah, and I was like, I didn't read it like I read the first one, like I didn't read them as they came out. Like I read The Assassin's Apprentice probably maybe 10, I don't know, maybe it would be 10 years ago, now that I think about it. But, I didn't read them as they came out. Yeah. But I do still feel like I've known these characters for so long.
Yeah.
So question, generally speaking across the board, I think most of us here would probably call ourselves more fantasy than sci-fi readers. Do you think one of the reasons for that is because sci-fi can date itself more so than fantasy can?
I suppose fantasy can still be dated as far as, depictions of women and that sort of thing. My theory is that I read books because I read for character, not for plot. And I find a lot of science fiction is plot-driven and not very fleshed out characters, whereas a lot of traditional fantasy, well, this sort of fantasy anyway, Robin Hobb style, is very character driven. Like, I mean, Lord of the Rings, not so much, which is sort of, original fantasy, I guess. But yeah, a lot of the fantasy that I enjoy is all about the characters and not as much about the plot. Whereas I think a lot of the science, especially the old school science fiction that I've read, the characters are really hardly developed at all, and it's all about the plot. But that's my theory.
Anybody else think the same, or
yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, but also I guess I'm pretty lazy. I don't give a crap about the science and fantasy. And most of the fantasy I read is medieval fantasy. I'm a medieval historian, so it's like boom bam boom. I can get into that. I don't have to think. But with science, it's like, oh, do I have to analyze? Is this, can this actually happen? Do I have to care how many potatoes you can grow in dirt? Blah blah blah. It's why I like Star Trek Next Generation, because it's character, not plot as well. It's just like, these people living on a ship in space, and sometimes things happen, but basically we're just living on a ship. It's the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the science fiction that I have liked have been the ones that are more character driven, and yeah, I'm trying to think of an example and it's not happening, but
yeah, I'm trying to think of any science fiction titles that I even own.
I've got a fair few. Like, I think what's interesting for me, for myself now, is what I'm noticing is I've always considered myself more of a fantasy than a sci-fi, and I think this is why the question's coming up for me. I'm finding myself more and more drawn to sci-fi, but what I would consider really good quality sci-fi. So I think Ancillary Justice is a really good example of why that's starting to happen. And I'm wondering if that's because sci-fi has improved, whether my thoughts and what I like is better and that sort of stuff. And yet when Tom chooses some of these classics, I'm like, I don't really want to read that.
I find the same with the really classic fantasy. Like I couldn't read Pern because I'd give no craps about dragons and women being have to have sex with dragons, blah. So I skipped it.
I started at a good point with Pern, and I think that's what got me into it. Like, because I see what the problems are with it now, and I know the issues behind it. First of all, I was very young when I read it, but second of all, I started with Dragon's Dawn rather than, wait, am I getting it right? The one that's set like when they first arrive on the planet and they actually create the dragons, and starting
There is
with
a lot of science behind Pern, which is a bit different to normal fantasy, you know, like which is what I found I really liked about Pern, is the crossover of the two genres, and how the fantasy is explained scientifically.
And also when she goes further into the story, so not like the first 3 books aren't really good examples with how she ends up treating women. She starts off really poorly, but part of that reason for that is because of the way the world has changed over the many, many hundreds of years that they've been living there. And at first, though, you don't know that when you start off the book if you start with that one, whereas I started at a different point in the series because my friend had me start chronologically with how the story, with the books, rather than when they were actually released.
Yeah, I read them in order of when they were released, and it really confused me some of the time because I think we got like 3 in a row of the same age, and then one flipped forward and flipped back. Oh yeah, it was all over the place.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's a series of books that I really enjoyed as a teenager, and they don't hold up now. But they started fantasy and went sci-fi because it progressed over the life of the character. And I don't really like the sci-fi ones, but I'll read them. But I don't know why. It just feels a bit obviously made up and wankery. Whereas I can accept that when it's fantasy. But I don't know.
Fair enough.
Which series was that?
Completely prejudiced. That was The Ancient Future. Tracy
Harding.
Yep.
Oh, yes. Of which I bought. I have big history with this book, the first one, because I bought that book under the impression that it was a standalone, and I got really peeved when it turned out to be part of the series.
I was in a bookstore once, and the person was trying to sell this guy in his early 20s the first book of the second trilogy, and I had to jump in and say, no, you have to start at the start or not at all, because
it's funny how different series are different like that. I mean, like I just finished reading all of the, well, not all, I've got the last one to go, but all of the Witches books from Discworld, and was really easy to just read by themselves, and I didn't need to read anything else. And the Pern series as well, like if somebody asked me, oh, should I read this series, I would start them off at a different point than the first one. And yet others, it's absolutely essential.
Yeah, and I think they need to tell you too. Because Robin Hobb ones are a lot like that. Like like you said, you started reading the full ones, and when you look at the series, that's the full books, and you think, okay, that's a series, and you've got the Assassin books, that's a series, and the Live Ships are a series, but you really need to read the 3 series. They're like series within a series. You really need to read them in order to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
So are authors or publishers or whoever is doing and just like making a decision, doing us a disservice by breaking the series up into these small
I don't think they broke it up. I think she wrote 3 and then went, oh, okay, and now I'm going to write another 3 set in this. Well, the Live Ship, because the Assassin books came out, then the Live Ship ones are kind of almost like a spin-off. They're set in the same world, but further south, and there's not a lot of character crossover
in that series because he squishy, and it's really cool.
Spoilers. Anyway, but yeah, I don't think it was to your point, Mel. I don't think it was an intentional thing from the authors or the publishers. I think she wrote 3 books as a series, and then down the track decided to write another series and set it in the same world. And then all these people read that series but were like, but Miss Fitz and the Fool, we want them back. And so she wrote another series with those 2 characters in it. I don't think she ever planned out to do that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I didn't think she was ever going to come back to them, and now she's releasing them again, and I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I think it has to depend on what you feel like writing, doesn't it? Because if you're not into it, you can't write it. So.
Well, I suppose it's better that she wrote like a series of 3 and then had a break before and then decided to come back to it rather than feeling forced to continue writing all the time.
Yeah.
She did write another series that was completely out of this world, that wasn't set in this world, that was not anywhere near as good.
And I know Brandon Sanderson, because I'm a big fan of his, he said that the Stormlight Archive, which is 10 books, will actually be 2 arcs of 5, so that you don't have to wait until he's 104 for all the books to come out.
Oh, thank God!
As the person who finished off The Wheel of Time, I think he's sensitive to us as readers.
Well, I must admit, of all the authors out there, I think Brandon Sanderson is one of the nicest in that respect, who is a series writer. I think John Scales is pretty good with communicating to his people as well, but he doesn't quite do the same sort of series in-depthness as Sanderson does.
As say Martin or Rothfuss, who are both like, I'm like, I need to put a pitchfork in your butts and get writing, both of you. At least Pat Rothfuss has only got one more to go.
I think Pat is he's pretty upfront that he's nearly done. He's just editing now. So
Yeah,
He does like
he's a
20
perfectionist.
billion edits.
Yeah.
yeah. Have you guys been listening to his podcast with Max Temkin?
Oh, yes,
No.
it's so
Pat
good.
Rothfuss?
I love it.
It's so good. Oh my goodness.
I
Get on
want
it if
to
you-
get myself an alarm clock.
Oh, every week I'm like, I need to life hack this, and it's just been amazing for me. So, yeah,
I
it's
know.
really good. But basically, they sit around for an hour and discuss Pat's first world author problems, and then they talk about how they need to life hack themselves out of their procrastination spirals, and it's really good.
It's like eavesdropping on two good mates having a conversation.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
talk. It's very rambly, but they always come up with something they're going to try and do to improve their lives, and you're just like, yeah, I should try that.
Yeah, I can do that, yeah. And they mentioned one a couple of weeks ago about the program Rescue Time that you install on your computer, and it logs all of the things that you do. And so you can see, yes, I actually did spend 3 hours playing Wasteland 2 today instead of actual work. And they talked about it. It's like, yes, I already do that. I'm winning this week. No, it's great.
Oh my God, Nye went and bought me a Kindle. Oh Jesus, he's just sent me a picture on Facebook, but he's gone. It's upstairs right now on my bed. Go and
get it. Show us.
I'll be right back.
That is so book related. Excellent.
That's awesome.
Oh dear. I made my cousin go buy a Kindle the other day, and he literally left my house, went to the shop, bought a Kindle, came back, and went, "Oh, look what I got!"
My
every
husband
time
and I
he comes
bought
around,
each other
he's got it.
paperweight.
Oh.
Yeah, we
How
got
are
each
the
other paperweights
paperweights?
because I love it. It's so good. But yeah, he kept taking my Kindle, and I was like, rack off. I'm trying to bloody read. So we bought one each and gave the old Kindle to my daughter. So like we all just sit there with our Kindles now.
Yeah.
Good.
Nice.
I can't
I'd
do
love to
e-readers.
upgrade mine. I used to think that until I tried it. I used to think, oh, you know, I love
my
paper
Kindle.
books. I love paper books, and I love the feel of a paper book and the smell of a paper book and all that stuff. But you know, I'm buying this Ron Hobby hardcover because Ron Hobby is my favourite author.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, do it.
it's dangerous. This book is so big, and I read in bed, and I am going to clock myself in the head with it at some point. And I've done that with a Kindle. It does not hurt as much as it does.
I just can't. I can't carry that around
And
with
you
me.
can't,
I read on the go.
No,
Like, and
if you-
I'm going to uni, and I've got a backpack on, and I've got 3 books, like readers in there, and my laptop, and like a big bottle of water, and all of the other stuff. I can't fit a book that size in my bag as well.
Yeah,
It's just not going to happen.
exactly.
And also for people like me, because I have arthritis in my hands, I can't hold those books anymore.
Yeah.
Like I could not literally pick up that Robin Hood, but this it's fine. I can papers
Especially,
anyway.
I love watching Mel's
especially
face.
at the
It's like an
beginning.
unboxing. It's awesome.
Like
Go.
I've only read like this much, like this tiny bit, and when it's like that, it's really, really hard to hold because it's all heavy on one side and not as much on the other. When you're in the middle, it's not as bad because it's got a bit of balance to it. But when you're at the beginning and the end, it's like, oh, I'm just going to rip a page out trying to hold it or something.
I appreciate the practicality of it. I find it really difficult to read things like just electronically. Like my brain just switches off. I just can't
Some
focus
people
on it.
are like
But
that.
I find the paper, I'm exactly the same, but I find that the Kindle doesn't seem electronic to me when I'm reading it. It doesn't, because it has that electronic paper. It's not like, I couldn't sit and read a book using the Kindle app on my computer. In a million years, I couldn't do that. But the way that the Kindle is on my eyes, I find it more like reading a paper book.
Okay.
I find
All right,
I'm okay
can
with
we
it.
focus
I read
on-
for ages on my iPad, but I would constantly flick to other things and get distracted. But I've been reading on this ridiculously bad Kobo, and I can focus a lot more like I do with a paper book on it.
Show us
Yeah.
the Kindle.
Yay!
It's a new paperweight.
Oh, nice.
But
It's
apparently,
so much littler than mine.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is a little heavier than my Kobo, but the Kobo's shit, so, you know.
Well, I've got like
shit about
first
the Kobo?
generation old Kindle, so.
Oh, it feels so nice.
What's shit about the Kobo out of interest?
Sorry?
Oh, excuse me. What is shit about the Kobo out of interest? Because I was just looking at different types of e-readers, and
Okay, well,
no one I know has got anything but Kindles.
but what's shit about the Kobo? First of all, almost always all my books are bought from the Kindle stores, so I have to convert everything to put it on there.
What
Second of all,
file type does it take?
this takes EPUB, whereas Kindles take Mobi.
Yeah.
So I have to convert everything. But what the real problem is that this one was second-hand. It was given to me by a friend who got they got their upgraded Kobo. They're quite happy with their Kobo, by the way. But this was second-hand, and he's not very good with his devices. And this one freezes on me. You, like, turn 10 pages, and then it won't turn for 10 minutes.
Oh,
And then I'm like,
no.
That would drive me insane.
Yeah, no, that would drive me crazy too.
yeah, so it's not so much that when I say shit Kobo, I mean this
The
Kobo.
actual Kobo.
Not Kobo overall as a device. That I have no personal opinion on because I've never had a brand new one, so I don't know. But I spoke to the guy who gave it to me about it, and he said, look, the thing is if you're in that environment, you may as well get yourself a Kindle, because I was looking around to see what I should get. Yeah. And he said, if you're in the environment, the Kindle's perfectly fine, you may as well just get it. So there's 2 booklets. Apple has none, but they have 2.
Really? Mine didn't come with one either. It was just on the Kindle.
Remember.
It's almost all in another language, so it's probably only 1 page. This one seems to be the terms and conditions and the warranty, and so it's many languages for that. And then this one's the getting started, which is also many languages. It's literally 1 page in English, and the rest of it is every other language.
Yeah, because everything else,
I
you
reckon
just turn it on and it shows
turn
you.
it on, go to this website, read the manual on your Kindle.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually telling me here too, and I don't really need this. I'm fairly confident because I do know what I'm doing with an electronic device. So. Yay! This is so exciting. So get this right. He bought this when we were down at the shops today, which was around about midday. It's been sitting on my bed waiting for me since 1 o'clock, and he had to actually post a photo of it on my Facebook right now and tell me to go look at my Facebook. He's been waiting all day, the poor man.
You're like the worst person to surprise Mel.
Apparently. He's been suggesting all day, you know,
don't you need a nap?
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. Like, because I was sleepy, but I thought I'll have a nap.
And you're like, no.
No. I wanted a nap, but I had it on I was trying to have it on the couch with the pugs. I want to go to bed? No, not really. The pugs need some attention. I'll stay.
Go to bed, Mel.
And then I was going to go change clothes before the hangout, and he's like, "Don't you want to go change your clothes?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I've got some stuff downstairs. I'm just going to whip that on."
You're like a lady who drinks the engagement ring out of the champagne glass.
Apparently, but look at this. He's even written me a little note. No, he's so You probably can't read that because it's back to front. What am I doing?
Where's my husband?
It's not clear enough.
He needs to learn.
Oh dear. Oh no, this is really good because I'm doing so much work at the moment in Tasmania, and so I've been taking the Kobo with me so that I had heaps of books with me and I didn't have to worry about it at all, and which is why I've been so frustrated this week because I've been stuck on the freaking Kobo. So now I have a brand new Kindle. Oh God, I need a case.
Oh.
Amazon. Here we go.
It's all good. I'm so happy. That's a very nice surprise for me today.
Anyway, I've got to bail. I've got another 500 words to write in this essay that's due tomorrow.
Good luck.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Thanks. I'm so glad that I got to join you guys even for a little bit. Yay. And I read a book for this year. Yay.
Yay.
And it was for both book clubs. Hooray.
Yeah.
G, just as a reminder, your book club pick for January, start thinking about it. I'm going to ask you in the next month or so what you're going to finally decide on.
I might have to do a poll because I've got 2 ideas and I'm not sure which one yet. So.
Oh, what a shame, a poll.
That's what I did. I was like, oh, I don't want the pressure of deciding this time. I'm just going to make
they're all books I've already read because I might not be able to fit them in otherwise. But, yeah. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Sorry,
Right.
Elizabeth and Erin, that's for our other book club that we've got Land Down Under. Sorry, I sometimes mix the business up a bit.
Which you're welcome to join. We usually pick pretty good books for that book club. So
Cool. In fact, that's actually what we read The Martian with. So.
Actually,
Yeah.
the next one for that is The Sleeper Spindle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's this one.
No,
Yay!
I just bought that for my daughter.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
I'm going to
reading
be there
this
for that one
next
too.
month. If you want to join us, we're
I
reading
think
it
I
next
might.
month. But just be aware, we're also doing in that one. We chose a short book deliberately because we're also doing. We do book exchanges twice a year where we do like Secret Santa but with books. And so we're also combining with that one. We're doing talking about what we got from our Secret Santa type one. So.
Okay. And is that just on like this circle page thing? Like, I don't know how to do this.
I don't know. That's okay. Erin, it's a separate group, which we've got a group page on Goodreads, and we've also got a Facebook page for just general communication. And then I can add you to the circle as well. So if you want to join, just let me know, and I'll pop you into it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, give me a second. I'll send you
and
some
it's
links.
sorry. I was just going to say, it's like, you know, you can go, oh yeah, I like this book and I'm going to come this month, and next month, oh no, that book doesn't appeal, so I won't bother. So it's not like you feel like you're locked into anything or anything like that. So
Cool. Thank you.
All right. I'm out, guys. Bye. If you can see me
Bye. Have
in
fun.
my darkness.
You are a little bit.
One day I'll get a lamp for this room. I will. All right. See ya.
Bye.
Okay, so if you want to join us, that's the Goodreads page, so you can just request.
Okay.
And then here's the Facebook page, and just request there as well. And I'll add you into both of those if you want. Elizabeth, are you actually in the Land Down Under one?
Will be in a minute.
Okay, good.
No, I'm not. I just follow what you have to say about it on the Twitters because I'm a stalker like that.
I don't do that at all. No, never.
Yeah.
I still haven't thought of a book week costume, by the way. Even
Isn't
though
it
our
just
school seems to... Yeah, because our school is stupid and they're doing it like 2 weeks late because, you know, that's the way shit goes down at my school. But
Right.
yeah. So I've still got a week and a half. A week. It'll be not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that I have to have the costume for.
See, I
And is
think
it going to be for an actual book?
Sorry?
So is the costume going to be from an actual book? Because I have issues about book week costumes that are not from books.
Yes, well that's the thing, and I have to decide.
I'm such a snob.
I don't know what I'm going to do. But a friend of mine was saying that at her school, one of the teachers went as the paper bag princess, and I'm like, that would be a really cool costume.
That's awesome. We had
So,
one of the teachers at my daughter's school went as the very hungry caterpillar, and he had a green sleeping bag, and then just safety pinned on were laminated bits of the fruit and all the junk that the caterpillar eats. It's so good.
That's awesome.
It would have been hot, but yeah, it was really good. And one of the kindergarten teacher went as Charlotte's Web because they've just finished reading that at the school. So she just had her finger puppet pig and her finger puppet spider and Charlotte's Web. That was easy. So.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Come on,
I mean,
you can't. You're seriously telling me you don't have enough pink in your wardrobe that you can't go as Umbridge?
I'm not going as Umbridge because I don't want the kids to think worse of me than they already do. Thank you.
Oh, come on.
I'm like, God, they already think I'm a bitch. I'm not turning up as Umbridge.
Oh, okay.
I reckon a lot of them won't know anyway. Like, I don't know.
You don't think they know the Harry Potter well enough?
I don't know if they would, no. Especially because there's a lot of little ones too, you know. I mean, maybe my class would know, but a lot of the littler kids probably wouldn't know what it was. So that's why I'm thinking maybe I'll pick something from a picture book instead. But I'll see. I have to think. And it has to be something I can easily make too.
See, I can suggest lots of picture books, but they're not necessarily and probably aren't ones that your kids know, so that makes it really difficult.
Yeah. What's the other one that I was thinking? Oh, there's one called A Bad Case of Stripes or A Case of Stripes or something that I have a copy of. And it's this girl that sort of wakes up one morning and she's like all covered in rainbow stripes and it's about the fact that she's come out in these stripes because she's trying to pretend to be like other people instead of being herself and blah, blah. It's a really cool book. And I'm like, I could do that and I just get like multicolored face paint. And it's like, that means getting up early enough in the morning to put on face paint and like it goes down her arms and everything. And I'm like, no. I wouldn't be able to do it the night before and I'd have to get up real early.
You could just buy like socks or like arm warmers, leg warmers that were rainbow stripes.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Or even just buy something like that and just paint it on those so that it's...
Yeah, that's a good idea. Didn't think of that. But yeah.
I wish I could give you my Kaylee umbrella now so that you could take that with it.
I have a Kaylee umbrella, but yeah, that's not... Like, yeah, not only would A, that not be a book, and B, the kids would not have a clue. So,
no, I know.
But you'd still be pretty cool.
I was just thinking with the rainbows it might be cool. So
yeah, no. I'll show you, hang on, I'll find the picture of the book I'm talking about.
I'm really sorry, guys. I'm going to have to go because my battery's about to die.
Oh, it's alright. It was lovely to meet you.
Sorry, we've got sidetracked.
Thank you. This has been great. Thank you for inviting me. I'll join the other one. That looks like a lot of fun.
Awesome.
So,
sounds good. I've already approved Elizabeth.
All right. Yay! Thank you very much, and I'll see you all sometime soon.
All right. Bye, Erin.
Okay. Bye.
Oh, wow. She really does have a case of the stripes, doesn't she?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm kind of like, well, that's another idea. I was just going through Xander's bookcase and going, what could I pick? And I pulled that one out, and Paper Bag Princess was another good one. I'm leaning towards that because it would be fairly easy to make. But I'm thinking, oh, God, I hope it's not a cold day because, you know.
Or a windy one.
Well, I'm going to have to put something on under it, obviously, because that could be bad. But still, like, it's sort of not, like, you'd have to sort of have, like, your arms and legs showing, I guess, and it could be cool. You know, weather cool, not, yeah, but anyway.
You could just wear, like, a shirt and leggings underneath, because, I mean, you have to wear clothes, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but my friend said this other teacher, when she did hers, she actually put on, like, smudges of dirt on her arms and stuff, and I thought, oh, that sounds really cool. Yeah. But
I like it.
I don't know. I keep thinking. I can't do it for too long because I've got to have time to actually do it.
Yeah, it is actually Sunday already.
Yeah, it's next Wednesday, not this Wednesday coming.
Oh, okay, right. Sorry. Missed her the day.
Thank goodness. Yeah, well, I don't know why our school has decided to be 2 weeks late. I reckon it's just because they've decided at the last minute, oh, yeah, everyone else is doing book week, we should do that too. And because they decided it at the last minute, it was already too late to tell everybody for actual book week, so they've gone, oh, we'll do it late. But that's usually the way stuff goes down at my school, so, you know.
Well, I suppose
we'll
it
just go
doesn't
with it.
really matter when you do it, as long as you do it. So.
Yeah, I know.
And personally, I'm of the opinion that think schools should stagger more of those sorts of things anyway, because especially when they get guests and stuff in, it's the right nuisance when you're competing with each other. So
Yeah.
I only know
Yeah.
that because schools are always asking me to come in on their PD days on the first day of term, and it's like, everybody wants me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're awesome.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I mean, I gave a talk the other day on females in STEM. Come on, I'm awesome.
See, that's the other thing I'm stressing out about at the moment, because I'm running this, the kids at school have entered this STEM competition, and I'm kind of being their mentor, and like, they're freaking me out because they're leaving things to the last minute. It's like, no, you really need to get shit organised, because it's like, you know, in 2 weeks' time, I think that actually might be the day after the book week thing. It could be the week after that. I'm not sure. It's not very far off, but I'm like, oh my god, driving me
On it.
crazy. Because one of the girls is building a telescope and she hasn't started it yet.
Oh, God.
I know. I'm like, oh, do not. Yeah. I hope it works the first time you try to do it, because you're not going to get time. And she has to test it as well. She's building a telescope, and then she's going to actually test to see what she can see with it. And I'm going, oh my god, you needed to have this done a long time ago. But,
Pretty intense little project there.
yeah. Oh, it's, you know, it's made, she's doing it, you make it out of 2 cardboard tubes that you make one slightly smaller than the other so that they can telescope in and out, and then you have a lens at each end. So it's a fairly simple project in theory, but these things never actually are as simple as they seem.
So does it include, like, the glass to magnify things?
Well, we've ordered lenses for it, because
Yeah,
she only
that's
came to me last week and said, like, she decided she was going to do a telescope, and then she changed her mind and was going to do something else, and now she's changed her mind back and she's doing the telescope. And I'm like, but I needed to have ordered those lenses for you ages ago, but I didn't, because you said you weren't doing that anymore. And now it's like, crap, I hope they come in time.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
really pushing the limit there.
I know, but, you know, I can only do so much.
Might
It is their project, not mine. I can't control it for them.
Getting organised.
Mm. Yeah.
Especially because
Well,
we're one
guys.
of the few public schools that's doing it, and mostly fancy private schools that's going to be there, and they're going to look lame. But anyway.
I've been there for that, but for me it was debating. We went to this debating camp day, and I had to take the kids along. And just so you know, I'm shit at debating, but the head teacher gave it to me and said, you've got to do it. And I'm like... And then we turn up to this thing, and all my students, the poor things, are not very good at debating and haven't had a lot of experience, but we had to have a debate team. And we get there, and there's all these private schools who have their full-on debate seriousness thing going on, and you're just like, I'm intimidated by these kids.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that just makes me think you're going to come up against Paris Geller, doesn't it? Just get the Gilmore Girls reference because I'm old.
Don't worry, you're amongst fellows there.
All right, well, I'm going to head out. It's
I'm going to wrap it up as well. Isn't it nice starting at 7 and we finished at a decent time?
Yeah. Yeah, especially I've got to get up early tomorrow. I've got a ultrasound tomorrow. Very exciting.
Sorry, Elizabeth, we usually start at 8, and so usually we finish at 10 to 11, so it's like...
Yeah, and because it's usually a Monday night. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Sunday's unusual. We usually do Monday nights, so... Anyway.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I shall see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
It was fabulous. Bye.